Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Bradu. I thought I usually do some Shadow Dark content. Today I figured I'd go a little more generic and talk about a subject that we may have all experienced in some form or another. And I think all of these were D&D related, but D&D horror stories or RPG horror stories. Uh, about playing. I have found that playing with random people, especially like online, I think most of these are online. It's just such a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get, and one player can ruin the experience so much. I'm going to start and end with kind of a bonus situations that aren't really a D&D horror story, but maybe. Anyway, first one I'm going to talk about goes way back to when I was probably 16 and one of my very first times playing D&D, trying to do it by the book. Let's see, I had to be 18 actually. I had to be 18. Because the guy I am talking about I didn't become friends with him till after we graduated. So anyway, there was probably four of us. At the usual, we spent probably at least 2 hours creating characters in depth. It was all cool. He had some adventure he wanted to run. I think it was out of his mind. I don't think we were doing like a you know, an actual pre-written adventure or whatever. But so we started out in like this prison, and we've got to escape the shackles. And I don't remember how that happened, but our whole group is able to escape the shackles. And we start trying to escape the prison. We have no weapons or anything. We run down this hallway, and the orc guards catch us and slaughter us. So we spent 2 hours making characters and about 5 minutes actually playing the game. And back then, it was like you hit 0 hit points, you're dead. And so my buddy, who was the DM, was kind of like, "All right, guys, well, what do you guys want to do now? Go throw the football?" It's like, sure, I guess. Like we were all ready to play D&D. But that was the deadliness of old school D&D for sure, which I kind of liked. But I kind of feel like we should have twisted something and kept playing. Anyway, that's not really a horror story, but I thought it was funny thinking back to that. So fast forward to maybe 5+ years ago, as an adult, I finally got into D&D. I always loved it, but I never really started playing till 5 years ago or so. And I really got eager to like get out there and try like what is real D&D like. So I started searching for groups to join online. And it just felt like there was usually somebody to ruin it. I can't remember if this is the first time that I played in a group or not, but certainly one of the first times I played. There was this one guy with the stereotypical dumb barbarian character. And pretty early on, it was apparent this was going to be annoying to play with. I specifically remember one when I really realized that this was kind of ruining the experience. We come into this room, there's this fountain pouring out this mysterious liquid, and this guy says, "I'm a dumb barbarian, so I'm going to run over here and start bashing my head against this door. Maybe I can break down the door with my head," or something like that. And I'm like, I want to check out the fountain. And so I do a couple rolls or whatever, and I discover that the fountain is actually a fire breathing potion. So we had a flask. I said, I have a flask. I'm going to fill it up with this fire breathing potion. And upon hearing this, the DM's talking to me, right? Upon hearing this, the dumb barbarian goes, "Oh, I'm a dumb barbarian. I'm going to run over and grab that out of his hand and just drink it because that's what I would do. I wouldn't even be worried about any repercussions." Well, you just heard what it was. You had nothing to do with it. I don't care. I wasn't going to be the one to drink the potion. I would have given it to whoever in the group it made the most sense to have it. But I was like, all right, that's annoying. That sucks. And the game just continued like that. Like soon after that, we're all headed down one corridor, being careful. And he's like, "I'm just going to run down this corridor the other way." And I was like, "No, no, like stay with the party." He's like, "But I'm a dumb barbarian." And he runs out, finds I think it was a dragon, like a wormling probably, runs back to the dragon, stands right next to me, and we both get blasted with fire breath. And I was like, dude. So I'm like, I can't play with this guy. So anyway, that was a one session deal, maybe two. I feel like maybe we played a second session, and I was just like, I can't play with this guy. And a little side note to that, I couldn't believe this one, but there's a prominent D&D YouTuber who's always giving game advice, GM advice, and usually he's pretty good. There's times that I'm like, I don't know about this guy, but I've watched a bunch of his videos. Then I watched an actual play video with him and some other like YouTubers. I was like, oh, it's kind of fun to see. And this guy was like, all right, so I'm a dumb barbarian. And I was like, oh God. And yeah, he sure enough, he didn't do anything quite as egregious as the guy I was just talking about, but he definitely was. I was unimpressed for a guy who's out there giving advice. That said, I'm not perfect, and we'll get to that. I'm far from perfect. All right, so like I said, I was having trouble finding groups to play with. Part of it is that my schedule is limited. I can't usually play like during the day. So I was like, I got to get out there and do something about this. If you build it, they will come type of thing. So I started up a Discord server and started inviting people to play who could play at my time, which was essentially late night. Um, and it kind of backfired, I hate to say, because of that crapshoot of playing with random people. A couple guys came in and were eager to run games, and I was like, that's great. I don't really want to be the DM. There was quite a few people in the group, but we got a game together. First game went like this, and I hate to dog on this guy because this guy was so nice, and I liked the guy, and he was an older guy who's played D&D forever. And I think he was just eager to please us and make sure we all had a good time. But immediately the experience was ruined for me. This is going to sound like I'm just a big whiner, which is probably true to some extent. So anyway, the adventure starts. I don't really remember the setup, but we're out adventuring. We're in the wilderness, and one guy goes, I want to search around for something interesting. Is there anywhere I can search? He's like, well, there's, bushes and shrubbery everywhere. And he's like, okay, I'll just start rummaging through the bushes. And he goes, okay. And like the DM makes some roll and goes, oh, you find a +5 Vorpal sword. And I was like, we're level 1. This is our first adventure. We're 2 minutes in. There's a +5, whatever it was. It was Vorpal something sitting in the bushes. And somebody else was like, ooh, I'm going to rummage around the bushes too. And he makes some roll and gives him some legendary item. I was like, oh God. I like to earn. Treasure is my favorite part of D&D, but I like to earn it. I like the randomness of it, but you can't just find a Vorpal sword in the bushes. You have to earn it to some degree. So he's like, anybody else want to try? Everybody take a roll. And I was the last one. He's like, why don't you roll? And I was like, no, thanks. I don't really want to look in the bushes. I didn't really want to be handed a legendary weapon, but frankly, I needed it because the next thing he throws at us is these super crazy hard monsters at level 1. But anyway, I felt bad, like I said, because that guy was super nice, and I absolutely know he was just trying to make us happy and engaged, but I didn't like that that we were getting massive treasure so easily. So I think I played in that guy's one session. He kept running games, and I did not continue to play with him. And then there was another guy who was eager to DM in this same group, and this one actually started out great. And this is a cliche. This will get to a cliche of the bad experiences. This is not a new one that many of you probably will relate to this in some way. So the adventure started out really cool. It was like we were on some boat that was headed somewhere. It sinks. We're all bailing out. We're sinking, and we have to make rolls to see if we can survive and climb back up in the rough water to get to the surface and get air. And as this is happening, he goes through each of us, and we're having to ditch our gear. Anything we were wearing, we had to ditch. And I have had the worst of it. I missed rolls. One roll after, basically, if you ditch your backpack, you get to roll again. If you ditch something else, you get to roll again. I ditched my backpack. I ditched my clothes. I was down to like a loincloth and a dagger strapped to my leg or something like that. But I made it to the surface. Everybody else made it, but I feel like nobody had weapons, or less than half of us had weapons. There was maybe two people without weapons, and I had a dagger, and then like one other guy had something. I can't remember. So there's us players, and then there's also an NPC, the captain of the ship, and he also makes it to the surface, and we make it to the edge, and we're doing survival stuff. We're trying to find stuff we can use on this island that we wash ashore on, and pretty soon we're in a battle, and it was like werebears or something like that, and I was like, oh god, there's no way. Well, first of all, we're not even supposed to be able to damage them with a single dagger, but he seemed to hand wave that because otherwise we had no chance in hell. But we still had no chance in hell. But we go through a couple rounds of combat being pretty. I think we were as clever as we could be to given the situation, even though we were severely outmatched. So like I'm attacking with my dagger, and then I'm like with my free action, I'll hand my dagger to the guy next to me who doesn't have any weapons, so he can at least make an attack. So we were kind of doing that. We were outmatched, but it started to become apparent. It would come around to the captain of the ship, and the DM would be like, all right, now my character does this. He actually has a cool weapon or something. I was like, okay, whatever. After about 3 rounds of combat, when we're really in big trouble, I think we were down on hit points. It was clear we were going to lose this battle. We had no way. We had nowhere to run because we're naked on a new island. And all of a sudden he goes, okay, so it gets to my character, the captain guy, and he's like, and he like all of a sudden transforms. It turns out he's a 10th level fighter slash whatever that can and he's a lycanthrope. He can transform into a werebear himself, and he just cleans house and saves the day, and everybody lives because the DMPC hero 10th level guy just. And I was like, wait, this was dumb. Like, we had no power to do anything. We needed you to save the day. So, to be clear, I'm actually not against DMPCs, but a DMPC should be in the right group where you all know and trust each other. Like, I do a DMPC when I'm playing with my kids. I'll play the cleric or whatever they didn't want to play, and I'll help maybe lead them in the right direction, give little clues, things like that. Even if it's my turn to attack and we can finish off the creature, I'm probably going to instead give a spell to boost one of my kids so they can have the glory of the finishing shot. So it was just totally against. And I was so bummed because like halfway through that adventure, I was super into it. I liked the survival aspects. But anyway, DMPC, he was like, it was so bad. He's just like, my character saves the day. And my character, oh man. So anyway, we're still in that Discord group, and I was like, I'm not really a DM. I've only DM'd for friends, but I started this group. I've got kind of a leadership role. I was like, I'm gonna try and run a game, and I think I did like Lost Mine of Phandelver, not Lost Mines, Lost Mine. And we spend a week like getting people who want to play, set a time, make your characters. I felt pretty confident. I was a little nervous, but I was pretty confident. I had run this with my friends. And first guy introduces his character, and he's like, I can't remember the deal. I had played with this guy in, I think, those previous games, and I liked this guy. And I think actually he had DM'd. I think he was usually the DM, and I had played in a game where he DM'd, and he was good. So I knew I trusted him in this group. And he comes in and he's like, okay, my character is an elf. And yeah, I'm an elf, but I talk like this. And it was like, I don't know if that's right, but he had some strong accent. It actually kind of sounded like Ivan Drago from Rocky. You will die. You will lose. Anyway, I was like, okay, that's cool. And immediately I get this ding. And I've got a private message, and this girl in the group is like, I can't play with this guy. This is so offensive, that accent. And I'm like, huh? I don't get it. And she's like, what are you going to do about this? And I'm like, I'm trying to run a game. I'm trying to introduce the next character. And all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed. She's like, you got to do something about this. And I can't even respond to her because this is my first time DMing on Roll20 or whatever. with random strangers, and it just, oh god, it just sucked. Like she's like, okay, never mind, I'm out, but I'm gonna sit and watch and scrutinize you guys in your every move. She didn't say that, but that's how it felt to me. So I was like nervous, and that I didn't. I don't think I even responded. I think I might have just given a quick response, like, "I'm sorry, like I've got to run the game." And she's like, I'm sitting out, but I'm gonna watch." So I felt like anything I do was gonna be criticized, and it went okay. I feel like we played that session and it went okay, but it was ruined for me. And all of a sudden, I was scared to DM for random strangers. And it all goes back to that playing with random people is just such a crapshoot. And to this day, and I even talked to her about it the next day. I said, "I'm sorry I didn't do anything in the moment, but I was frozen. I was trying to DM my first time. I don't really know it was offensive." She's like, "The accent." And I was like, in what way is a character voice? That's encouraged in RPGs. You know what I mean? Like have a voice, act a little role play. I don't know what she was upset about, but that was bad. What do we got here? That's it. Those are my main ones. I did want to. I said I would end with a bonus one, and that was me DMing, and it was. I don't know what I could have done differently. Honestly, I never did talk to the other player about it because I didn't want to say like you screwed up because I don't know what he did wrong either. But anyway, the last one I was going to say is I do have a regular game with actual real life friends. We play in person once in a while, but not very often. And we started 3, 4, 5 years ago and had a couple regular game sessions that went regularly. We have been off it for a while, but anyway, I was DMing. There was like three or four players that were regulars that I knew that were friends. And then a guy who's a friend of mine, kind of an acquaintance. We don't know each other super well, but I saw him all the time through work or whatever. Um, and he was interested, and he seemed similar to us, kind of nerdy. He was like, "Yeah, I want to try it. I've never played." So I invited him to come play with us one time. And that poor guy, it was just a bad experience for him. And I think the mistake I made was maybe not front loading talking to my players and saying like, "The new guy's going to play with us tonight. How do you guys feel about that? So let's make sure he feels welcome," because they were just jerks to him. And I don't think they meant to be. I think he came in and they were just like he was a rogue thief. Rogue, it was D&D. But my buddy Ray, who I love Ray, and he's a super nice guy, but we have this saying, "All Ray all day, all Ray all the time." He does come at face value. He acts like with every person he met, he acts like he's known them his whole life, and he doesn't change his demeanor whatsoever. And so, we go into this first or second room we're in, and he's like, "What are you doing, rogue? Get in there and check for traps. You're the rogue. You gotta like sneak around and shit." And my poor buddy was like, uh, "Okay, I'll go in and how do I do that?" Like, is his first time doing anything right? So I could just tell he had a bad experience, and I was kind of trying to like smooth things over. And my other two buddies who were playing, I specifically remember, were both. One of them's generally a quiet dude, so maybe he just didn't say much, but he wasn't very welcoming either. And the other guy, like, they just weren't friendly to the guy. They just treated, and I was like, maybe they didn't like that I invited somebody to play. Nobody ever said that. I don't think that was it, but I felt bad because like halfway through the session, we took like a 5 minute snack break or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I'm getting tired. I'm going to go to bed." And I was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." I talked to him and he never complained. He's like, "No, it was fun. It was great." And I was like, "Yeah, but I could tell it was not the most welcoming environment, and I did not see that coming." So I got a lot to learn as a DM, and yeah. So if you play with me, you're gonna get all Ray all day because he's my most consistent player. Don't be offended. Anyway, that's it. D&D horror stories. We've probably all had them. Please let me know what you think. Share your favorite D&D horror stories. Hopefully we can get some word out and try to avoid these situations. Like I said, I'm sure I'm not perfect. I'm sure I've been somebody's D&D horror story too. But I try to keep the group in mind when I play and things like that. So have fun and yeah, that's all I got.